Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, class of 1971, alumni, guests. My name is Dr. Brian Lastly. I am the United States Air Force Academy historian. Yes, that is about the coolest job in the United States Air Force. We are here today to open the Air Warrior Combat Memorial. From the Lafayette Escadrille, Women Air Force Service Pilots, Big Alley, Linebacker 2, Operation Bolo, Desert Storm and beyond. From Sopwiths to space, there's a lot of air power to talk about today. But before we do that, please allow me to introduce the following guests, and please hold your applause until the end. Brigadier General Paul Moga, Commandant of Cadets. General Retired Ed Eberhard and his spouse Karen. General Retired Robin Rand. Lieutenant General Retired Christopher Miller and his spouse Rhonda. Colonel Bob Lowe, Chairman of the Association of Graduates. Mr. Mark Hilley, President of the Association of Graduates. Mr. Frank Morgan will do some other introductions here in just a little bit. I now ask Academy graduate, veteran, surgeon, professor, and Deacon Scotty Bowen to come forward and do the invocation.
Let's bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, it is always good when we become mindful of your presence. We thank you for the beauty of the day, the quiet of the night, for sunshine, for rain, even for the sorrow we do not understand. Most of all, we thank you for people through whom and with whom we see you and know you and love you. Hear this prayer for the combat air warriors, past, present, and future, and for their families and their loved ones. We acknowledge their sacrifices and service, and we pray for the day that when in the tender compassion of you, our God, the light from on high will break upon us and shine on those who dwell in darkness in the shadow of death, and guide our feet into the way of peace. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon. I'd now like to introduce a man who needs no introduction to most of our guests here today, but I'm going to do it anyway, because that's what they told me to do. Colonel Frank Morgan, class president for the class of 1971, and the class gift chair for this project. Most importantly, a man who has been involved in this project for more than 11 years, Colonel Frank Morgan.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the dedication of the Air Warrior Combat Memorial. I can tell you it is my great pleasure to be here today. I'm probably the happiest person within 100 miles of this place right now. As the doctor said, it's been a long labor of love for several folks, and we'll mention all of them today, so get ready. But we've all talked about a couple of our honored guests already, General Eberhard. A couple others that I want to mention as well. We have a very special family with us today, Christina Holtz and her daughter Jenny. And another honored guest is our sculptor and our classmate, Jim Nance, and his wife Jeannie. So our honored guest will be talking in a moment or two. But before we begin, I want to tell you a little bit about how this all started, how we got the idea for it, and also talk about all those folks who contributed to the various things that went to make this memorial what I think as cool as it can be. And there's going to be a lot of them, so stand by. The story about how we got the idea to do this actually went back to 2011 after our 40th reunion. And Jim and I were sitting in the old Chicago pizza place here in town, having a beer and eating pizza and reminiscing about our cadet days. And unbeknownst to either of us, Jim told me a little story of a little situation he had with then Colonel Holtz, where Colonel Holtz prevented him from really making a bad mistake about something. And as it would be, I also had a story for Jim where I said, you know, Colonel Holtz actually rolled in on me one time and kept me from making a big mistake. So based on these two life-changing events, you know, we decided just between us two guys that, you know, we needed to do something here. You know, we needed to do something for General Holtz, not just for what he had done for us, but for the years of all of his leadership and service that had been provided for so long. And the fact that we, as a class of 71, were the only class to have him for our entire 4 years here at the Academy, it was incumbent upon the class of 71 to make this happen and make it happen as soon as we could. Unfortunately, it took 10 years, but we got it done. So the next few years was spent deciding on what the statue should look like. Do we want to have an airplane back there or multiple airplanes back there? Where are we going to put it? Lots of those kinds of things. What kind of approvals would we need in order to make this thing happen? And then the biggest question of all was, how in the hell are we going to pay for this thing? Because we knew it was going to be a pretty good tab. Well, as we got deeper and deeper into the program, and the reason why we were doing it, it dawned on us that there was really a larger vision here. It was a team effort and a case where obviously the sum of the parts was going to be greater than the whole. And General Holtz said it best, I think, in one of his famous quotes, and I'd like to read that. He says, "Here's what I learned over the years. Know the mission, what is expected of you and your people. Get to know those people, their attitudes and their expectations. Visit all the shops and sections. Ask questions. Don't be shy. Learn what each one does and how the parts fit into the whole." How the parts fit into the whole. This concept of team success, of acknowledging and rewarding all the parts that make up the whole, is what made General Holtz the great leader that he was. So we decided to incorporate that idea into this memorial. He would still be the centerpiece, but surrounding him would be the stories about the shops and sections that made air power such a potent force. The stories of his team and all the teams across the Air Force and the decades that have made air power what it is today. So, just as the Air Warrior Combat Memorial represents those teams that contributed to the success of air combat, there were several teams that were responsible for it becoming a reality, and I would like to thank those teams right now. To get the ball rolling back in 2011, we had to set up a class gift committee. The following members of the class of 1971 were members of that gift committee, and they were asked to do the unthinkable. Call their classmates and ask for a lot of money. And they did this with a panache of seasoned fundraisers. They were, and I'll name them, Bill Coleman, Bob Lowe, Rod Jones, Tom Berry, Gary Payton, Russ Huffer, Cass Casada, Woody Smith, Paul Grimes, Paul Maffey, John Wittenborn, and John Torbla. Please join me in a round of applause for the class gift committee. The next team that made all of this happen were the members of the Air Force Academy Foundation. And without their guidance, patience, and total support, we could never have completed this project. From day one, they held our hand and guided us through the ups and downs of all the red tape and helped us learn how to actually collect the funds that we're going to need to do this. These folks include Greg Nedler, Raz Doherty, Paul Ackerman, Vince Renaud, and Randy Helms. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. So finally, I want to talk to the folks that really made this happen, the donors. And there are many of you in the audience today. Many of you have your name on one of the walls of this memorial. And you all answered the call when it came, and several 2 and 3 times. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know that was difficult at times, but you made it happen. And I also need to mention a special item regarding donations. As so often happens with a large project like this, you reach a point where you squeeze the onion so many times it's just dry. And as that happened to our project, and we were fortunate that when it did, we had our brothers in other classes that stepped up and lent a hand and helped us make it across the line. The class of 63 was generous enough and lent us a hand to help cover the cost of the 14 huge panels that tell the air combat story inside that you'll get to take a look at. And that was not a small piece of change, I will tell you. We appreciate that. And then the class of 69, excuse me, carried us across the finish line. And I found a secret that Lindsay Parrish probably knows already, but that is, if you want to get money out of the class of 69, you just tell them it has something to do with Robin Olds and an F4 fan. And they were like coming out of the walls like termites with their checkbooks in their hands. So today in the audience, actually, we have General General William Ball from the class of 63, representing his class, and also from the class of 69, Colonel Lindsay Parrish, also the class president of the class of 69. And we are proudly displaying the class crest of 69 and 63 next to our class crest on the donor wall. Round of applause for these folks. Okay, so those were the folks who had the idea for the memorial and for the folks that actually paid for the memorial. And now I want to thank the team that was responsible for actually building the Air Warfare Combat Memorial. The original design was significantly influenced by HB&A and Thomas & Thomas design firms right here in Colorado Springs. All the hardscape concrete was molded by JBI Construction, also here. And the beautiful large aluminum panels that you'll see inside were crafted by ASI in Denver, led by Justin Halverson, who's here today with us. And special thanks goes out to Dwayne Boyle, the Academy campus architect, who held our hand again through the process and made sure we were doing everything consistent with the existing architecture. Again, please welcome these folks and applaud them. So, if I had to point to one task that took the most effort, not counting the statues, Jim, it was coming up with the content for the 14 panels inside that basically tell the air combat story. The team that took this extraordinary task on consisted of retired general officers, colonels, PhDs, and we even threw in some cadets to make sure all the vernacular was current. The months of effort spent on researching and writing and getting permissions to use photographs and rewriting were mind-boggling. And the amazing thing is that all of these folks had full-time jobs that they still had to work at every day. Here's that all-star team. Lieutenant General retired Chris Miller, class of 80. Doctor, Colonel retired Steve Randolph. Colonel retired, class of 87 for Colonel Randolph. Colonel retired Tom Berry, class of 1971. Miss Amanda Hess, Research Associate Emeritus. Then Cadet First Class Gail McGill, class of 20. Then Cadet First Class Daniel Smith, class of 20. And then Cadet Second Class Cameron Mathis, class of 21. Please join me in a round of applause for this team. So on a personal note, I also want to thank a very special couple who, aside from providing me free room and board and taxi service when I would come out for multiple meetings out here that dealt with the memorial, they were also instrumental in many facets of the project. And that is Tom and Jackie Berry. From material and color selection for the site itself to Tom's extraordinary leadership of the A-team that did all of the content, their contribution to the completion of the project was absolutely more than significant. So a round of applause for Tom and Jackie. So the next thank you is the special one, or one special one, and that would be to our sculptor, Jim Nance. Who would think that a former 141 airline pilot would be such a gifted sculptor? Not me. And when Jim and I were discussing the original concept for the Air Warrior Combat Memorial, I asked him, I said, so who's going to do the statues? And he calmly said, well, I'll do them. And I'm like, seriously? It blew my mind. I had no idea that Jim had gone on to another career and become so successful as a gifted sculptor. But after seeing some of the work that he had done, I had no doubt that we absolutely had the right guy for the job. And it made the whole experience that much sweeter, given the fact that our gift, our legacy gift to the Academy, was crafted by one of our own classmates. So Jim, on behalf of the class of 71, and as your friend, I want to thank you for the hundreds of hours that you put in on this memorial to make it truly unique. So one more, then I'm done. My final thank you is to my wife Terry over here, who's filming all of this. In addition to all the normal business travel that I was doing at the time, there were quite a few unplanned trips to Colorado Springs that popped up. And in the process, I ate up a lot of our American Airline miles, getting back and forth. So I promise you I will make those up to you. I want to thank you for your patience and encouragement and your love over the last 10 years. So now I would like to introduce our first guest speaker, Christina Holtz. Christina is a best-selling author and screenwriter, graduate of Vassar College, and the daughter of the legendary fighter pilot Robert Holtz. She has been involved in this project since the beginning and has been a great inspiration for both Jim and I the entire time. Christina Holtz.
Well, my goodness. We first arrived here at the Academy in 1967. I was a teenager, 15 years old. My younger sister Susan was 14. Unfortunately, we lost her 3 years ago to cancer. And we had no idea what it would be like to be here at the Academy, and I don't think my dad had any idea either. You know, why would some grizzled old fighter pilot be chosen to be commandant of a bunch of wet behind the ears cadets? Well, I'll tell you what, his first clue that it was going to be okay was when he showed up and every single one of you had a fake mustache on. And then because we're in mixed company, I won't tell you guys how he addressed all of you from the tower in Mitchell Hall. But what I did know is that my dad absolutely loved this job. He was surprised. He threw himself into it. He became the natural leader and the natural father that he was. All these cadets were his sons that he never had. And he loved it, and he loved you guys so much, and he was so proud of the classes that were under him. And I cannot imagine how he would feel right now if he were here today. We used to drive in the North Gate, and he'd look at that B-52 and just go, that's not all he did, but I won't tell you. And the funny thing is I struggled with the class and Frank Morgan and all these great people and Jim Nance as they went through iteration and iteration and iteration. Where is it going to be? Got approved and then disapproved. Got approved and then disapproved. Moved all over the Academy. Until one day they told me, well, we found the great spot and it's right next to the B-52. Daddy, you know what they say about karma? So anyway, I am just so proud. He was everything that everybody says about him. He really was that guy. He was an amazing fighter pilot, an incredible leader, a great, great friend, and a wonderful, wonderful father, and a wonderful grandfather. This is his only grandchild, Jenny, my daughter. She's kind of cute. I want to thank all of you for being here and honoring my dad and her grandfather in this way. And I actually have to believe that he is flying on the wings of our current pilots and will be flying on the wing of all of the pilots in the future. And anybody who doubts that can just come and stand under that sculpture and look at it, because he's looking out for all of you and everyone in the future. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I had nothing prepared, so hello. I mean, I know so many people here. Got a chance to know him as a warrior and as a leader, and it really wasn't until I was 18 that I understood that he was that to so many. Until then, he was just the best grandfather he could possibly be, and man, he was a great grandpa. Just adventure, laughter, mischief, always after trouble. I'm such a goody two-shoes.
He is totally responsible for Jenny believing in Santa, so she was 11.
He was so good at that. Let me just say. But, right? Oh, no, Mom. What? But, this just means so much to us. One, just as a larger-than-life representation, it's how I remember him in my eyes. I'm 5'4", he was 6'2", he was still always giant to me. And this is a very accurate representation of how he always was in my eyes. And I think what I really want to say is the important thing about someone like that, someone that important, is that when they are gone, they are never truly gone. The impact that he had on all of our lives, anyone who met him, anyone who has heard of him, anyone who has touched the legacy and touched the leadership and the strength of character was forever changed and forever impacted by him. And he is gone from this world and yet lives on through all of us and through his legacy. And I just want to thank you all so much for ensuring that until the day I die, my grandfather will always be alive, and all of you. So thank you.
Christina and Jenny, thank you for your comments. We all share in the pride that you had for both your dad and your granddad. Our next guest speaker is General Ed Eberhard. General Eberhard is a 68 grad of the Academy, currently serves as the chair of the Armed Forces Benefit Association and its related enterprise, a 5-star insurance company. His active duty military career spanned 36 years. In his last assignment as Commander, U.S. Northern Command, and Commander, North American Aerospace Defense Command. The General has also served as Vice Chief of the Air Force, Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Commander, Air Combat Command, Commander, Air Force Space Command, and Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Space Command. He's a command pilot with more than 5,000 flying hours. General Eberhard has previously served on the Academy Association of Graduates Board of Directors and is currently a trustee for the Falcon Foundation. He also received the United States Air Force Academy Distinguished Graduate Award in 2011. But there are 3 very important career moments that I'm sure meant a lot to him. First, he was my wing commander when I was a dually. Second, he was my squadron mate when we were both in the world-famous, highly renowned 525th TAC Fighter Squadron in Bitburg Air Base.
Is there a bulldog?
No. And finally, against all odds, he pinned on my Eagles when I made 06, way back about 100 years ago. So as we welcome General Eberhard, and my thunder just got stolen, I did want to ask you a question, sir. Is there a bulldog in the house?
You bet there is.
General Ed Eberhard.
Well, what an honor it is to participate in this dedication. Oops, right away. I have to admit that, I had some questions about the classes of 1971 at one point. And in fact, it was sort of reinforced by the fact that you asked me to participate today. Good but short memories, good but short memories. And if I could be so bold on behalf of the long blue line, thank you for what you've done to commemorate those who've gone before, participating in air combat, those who are in air combat today and will be in the future. And this is all about honoring those men and women. But there's an exemplar that we've heard about, we experienced, and that was something that we'll always relish. And that the exemplar is Colonel and then Brigadier General Robert Mills. The exemplar of air combat, of the air combat warrior. Now, in the fall of 67, I was the cadet wing commander, which you're all painfully aware of. And there was an excitement in the air because a new commandant was coming. Now, the class of 68 viewed that with mixed emotions because that was going to be our third commandant in 3 years. But as we researched it more, and there was no Google, but we researched it and learned about Bolo, the wolf pack, and what really sold it was his handlebar mustache. Was what really excited us. And that was his way of saying, as I think Christina alluded to earlier, he was bucking the establishment a little bit there with his handlebar mustache. He would say he couldn't give him the finger salute, so he was going to grow a handlebar mustache. And we all remember that salute many, many times, especially if the 8th Wing had gotten a kill. If the 8th Wing had gotten a kill, it was pandemonium in the evening meal formation, as we talked about that. So it was, he stopped, as many of you know, in D.C., met with the chief, met with the president, and went to Capitol Hill and told them exactly what he thought about our strategy and then the ensuing tactics that we had to use in Vietnam. He readily admitted afterwards it probably wasn't too good for his career, and I'm sure it wasn't. But the look on his face when we did the eyes left that morning as we went to the noon walk said it all. He said it all. This is going to be exciting. Sit back, buckle up, put your G-suit on. Robin Holtz is in town. Get ready to go. Then the next thing that happened was the beer on the terrazzo. And I'm sure somebody out there is responsible for that. But the beer on the terrazzo, a rally before a football game, all the AOCs, the group AOCs, I was in the meetings with them, they wanted to fire everybody. Around the cadet wing. Robin was laughing his butt off. He thought it was funny as can be. In fact, I got fired that morning by the vice commandant, only to have Robin hire me back that afternoon. Very interesting event. So then there was the streaker, which everybody was just, oh my God, the AOCs were going nuts. Robin's approach to this was really matter of fact. Called all the leadership in and said, how can you say everyone is present and accounted for at the noon meal when somebody's streaking? Good point. Very good point. Very good point. So then you fast forward to our 100th night. I was at that time, Colonel James's escort. He came in, he was the vice wing commander of F4 Wing in Florida, came in his F4C, hit initial, and Robin came down in his T-33 and a hell of a dogfight ensued. Right over the top of Peterson Field. A lot of people don't believe that. I was there. I saw it. And then I was summarily dismissed as he and Chappie went off to drink a bottle of scotch. But that evening, obviously, the young fighter pilot Robin Holtz came out because mixed sweep after mixed sweep in the club. And there was a piece of furniture standing. Interesting, politically correct, no. As the country song says, he's for some, not for everyone, okay? But that was the Robin Holtz that we knew. And so you look in here at the plaques. You look at the traits, what he represents, what was important to him. Warrior, fighter pilot, triple ace, leader, mentor, friend. He was all that and more. He was bigger than life, bigger than life. And today, he doesn't want this, he wouldn't want this to be about him, as many have alluded to. He'd want it to be about the team, the intelligence, the targeteers, the mission planners, the munitions, the maintenance, the reconnaissance and surveillance afterwards, and then the cycle starts again. I'm sure he enjoys being an exemplar, but he knows what it takes to succeed in air combat. I think that the jacket of this wonderful book says it all. As few men in the history of aviation have written with a broader brush or a more indelible brush than Robin Holtz. And it goes on to say, Robin is a classic hero. Classic hero. He has his vices as well as his virtues, but lived a life writ large that impacted so very many, so very many. So the class of 71, the wingmen, 63 and 69, and all who made this possible, you flew some heavy flak to get here. Bureaucratic, budgetary, and the list goes on. Obviously, it may not be the location you originally, and we'll try to keep this a secret from Robin, okay? And I know that TOT, he would have gotten a Q3 for this, as you know, with this TOT. But I would offer to you, it's the perfect TOT. Your 50th reunion. It's the perfect TOT. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
Well, we've got one more speaker before we can close this event out. Eagle driver, Raptor driver, Lightning II driver, a fighter pilot's fighter pilot, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
It is today.
And a gentleman I am proud to call my friend, Commandant Cadets, Brigadier General Paul Moga.
So this is one of the days when speaking last really stinks. Based on the two previous folks, this is going to be tough. But, you know, for the record, I did start writing my remarks on a bar napkin, but I got to 4, and then I heard it was going to be windy today, so I switched to paper. So hey, good afternoon, everybody. What an absolute thrill and an honor it is for me to be here today for the Air Warrior Combat Memorial dedication. It is certainly near and dear to my heart as a career fighter pilot who found a way to convince a maintainer to marry him. So this is really special. You know, the panels on the memorial, if you've seen them yet, and if you haven't, you'll see them afterwards. They tell a really truly impressive story of how our nation's battle for control of the skies has been carried out throughout our history by truly innovative warriors. Though that list of warriors is lengthy and diverse, one of the most notable is clearly General Robin Holtz. Normally, I would say the second best Commandant of Cadets, but I don't think I can say I'm better than Robin Holtz as anything. So I will officially refer to him as the best Commandant of Cadets at the U.S. Air Force Academy. And I have to admit, you know, when you walk into the Commandant's spaces on the 6th floor of the Vandy Tower, if you haven't been there, all the pictures of all of them are on the wall. There's on the 30th, so there's 30 pictures. And I only look at one. I look at all of them occasionally, but I look at one every single day that I walk into work, and it's Robin Holtz. Every single day. That's the one that I stare eye to eye. I can feel his eyeballs tracking me sometimes as I walk by, looking at me going, "Get to work, second best." But that is the photo that I look at every single day when I come into work as a Commandant. As Christina, you are all too well. And oh, by the way, Jenny, if you go up to the cadet wing in the cadet area, please be very careful. I'm just saying. There are some ground threats up there that you might need an escort to avoid. So be very careful when you go out, if you go out there. So anyways, as Christina is all too aware, her dad has been a fighter pilot role model and a role model to myself included, to thousands of folks over the years. But I would say that equally, if not more impressive than his tactical aerial wartime feats, was his deep commitment to prepare not only himself but others to fight and win this nation's wars. So my mission as the Commandant at the Academy is to build and inspire the next generation of warfighters prepared to lead with character. Period. Dot. I don't think anybody knows with certainty what the next war is going to look like. If someone says they do, I encourage you to think very carefully about whether or not you believe them, because I don't think any of us know what the next big fight's going to look like. There's a lot of good ideas out there and a lot of smart people studying them, but I don't think we know exactly what we're getting ourselves into. But one thing I will say, however, will be an absolute enduring similarity, and that is airmen who understand what being a warfighter means and how important it is. Robert Olds believed that fighter pilot is an attitude. And I say the same applies to being a warfighter in general. It's an attitude. It's a state of mind and it's a state of being. And I need every cadet at this academy when they graduate to carry a warfighter mentality forward into their career, whatever career field they end up in the Air Force or the Space Force. I am agnostic. I don't really care. As long as they show up thinking, performing, behaving as a warfighter, I think I've kind of done my job. And this memorial right here will play a big part in helping us achieve that. The entire memorial, which is phenomenal, by the way, represents a symbolic visualization of the competencies that will carry us forward to fight and win the future fight. Competencies such as grit, discipline, determination, innovation, critical and creative risk-taking, and above all, courage. And learning from the mistakes of the past, to be candid. As the saying goes, each time history repeats itself, the price goes up. So we know our strategic competitors are growing and getting stronger. That's no secret. They're evolving, they're modernizing, they're planning, and they're strategizing. And their pippers are all aiming at one country. And it's ours. It's America. So we have to adapt faster, and we have to accelerate our changes. As anyone who has looked upon the earth from the skies above knows, speed is life. And that just doesn't refer to your indicated airspeed. The last sentence of the panel, I think, says it so well. No matter how different each era's technology may make combat appear, air warriors of yesterday and tomorrow will always share the unbreakable bond of service together with an indomitable will to win. So on behalf of a grateful academy, a grateful cadet wing, and at least one grateful old, I know some of you are scoffing at me when I refer to myself as old, but believe me when I tell you that when I'm up there or when I'm flying with cadets at the airfield, I'm an old fighter pilot. And at least one grateful old fighter pilot, thank you again for making this memorial a reality. It will be viewed by thousands of cadets and visitors for generations to come. Thanks again. And I guess one more off the script comment. So the cadets are really excited about a thing called Mustache March, and apparently it's been banned for the last few years. And I just said yes yesterday. So but now I got to grow one too, I think so.
Thank you, General Moga. After the ribbon cutting, I invite everyone to come and tour the memorial. It really is a sight to see. And at this time, I would ask all of our distinguished guest speakers to come and help us officially open this memorial.